What's up, guys? It's your main man Antonio here, and I'm coming back with another pick video. We're gonna do UFC Fight Night Font versus Sandhagen, and we're gonna start off with Jake Hadley versus Cody Durden. Now, I think that Jake Hadley definitely has. I think he has the striking advantage, but I do think that people are sleeping on Cody Durden's striking a little bit, just because he's more of a grappler. I think that the striking range. I think the striking ability is definitely cleaner from Jake Hadley. I think he's a more precise. I think he has better speed, and I think it just looks better. It passes the eye test better. But I don't think that we can sleep on Cody Durden's hands. I mean, he's knocked out people as well. So I would say that and when you look at the striking advantages, I think Jake Hadley has about 2 more strikes per minute landed than significant strikes landed than Cody Durden. So the gap is not big there, especially when you consider the fact that Cody Durden wrestles a lot and he's a extreme wrestler. Like, he's going to grapple you for sure. And I've seen Jake Hadley being able to be somewhat taken down and controlled pretty much the whole match versus Alan Nascimento. And I know Nascimento is a good grappler, as well. So I think overall the grappling abilities of Cody Durden is gonna loom large in this fight. I think that on the feet it'll be closer than most people are expecting. I do think that Jake Hadley will have the advantage on the feet. I do think as well, though, that Cody Durden can hit him with a shot that might get, he's going to have the power to gain respect. Jake Hadley's not just going to be able to do what he wants to do with Cody Durden. And if he does, just like we saw in the Alan Nascimento fight, I think that's a great fight to look back on, because I think it's going to be a similar style of fight where Jake Hadley's walking Cody Durden down. Did he learn his lesson? Will he be able to stop those double leg takedowns that Cody Durden is going to push on him, just like Nascimento did? I don't know, because I think that Cody Durden's maybe even more of a he's even more of a aggressive takedown, a guy. I think he's more of a aggressive grappler than even a Nascimento is. I think Nascimento definitely might have better jiu-jitsu, but I would give the wrestling advantage to Cody Durden. So I personally think I'm going to go with Cody Durden on this pick, guys. I think I think the grappling is just going to be a little bit too much for Jake. And I don't, predict that Jake is going to have bad cardio. I think he's going to have pretty good cardio. And I know that when we look at Cody Durden's fights, and he looks like he has, questionable cardio at times. But if you look at the way and how much he's grappling compared to a Jake Hadley on a typical basis, it's not the same. So I think that will loom large for him, and I'm going Cody Durden. Next fight we got, guys, is Billy Q versus Damon Jackson. Now, this fight, to a lot of people that I've seen, seems to disrespect Damon Jackson. And, I mean, I can see what they're saying. And I just personally feel like you got to put a little bit of respect on this guy, because there's a lot of fights where I looked at it and I'm like, this guy is not going to win. And then he goes out there and he wins those fights. He got that dog in him. You know what I'm saying? He got that dog in him where he's going to keep going. But he's going against a guy who definitely got that dog in him. And Billy Q. Billy Q is one of the definitions of dogs. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely say that this is going to be a good fight. It's going to be better than expected. Now let's look at the significant strikes that are being landed. We're talking about Damon Jackson is landing about 3 compared to Billy Q's 10 significant strikes per minute. he's landing just period 4 to Billy Q's 13 per minute. And the attempts, because what else are the judges don't get to see they don't get to see the striking numbers when they're making their picks. They're looking at who's busier. And when you look at who's busier, you're going to see pretty much an average of 8 attempts per minute for Damon Jackson to 23 of Billy Q. You feel me? So that it's just the output on the feet are such a different output. He's putting out triple the output that Damon Jackson is going to be putting on the feet. So what does that mean? That means that Damon Jackson will be smart to go to the ground, which he does a lot. He does that a good amount. He controls a good amount of the fight on the ground. He controls 43% of the fight in his last 3 fights on the ground. And all these stats that I'm giving you is in the last 3 fights, because, you know, for me, I personally like to look at what have you done for me lately compared to what are you doing overall. So 43% of the fight is on the ground. That's almost half the fight. You know what I'm saying? That's a big chunk of that fight. And when you look at Billy Q, he's being controlled about 24% of the fight. So a chunk of this fight is going to be on the ground. It's just a matter of how much of it is going to be on the ground. Well, let's look at the takedown. I mean, Damon Jackson is averaging in the last 3 fights he's 3 of 6 on his takedown attempts. So if you average that out, it's looking like he's going to be 1 of 2. Obviously, MMA math is not perfect, but he's going to get a takedown or 2 on Billy Q. How much of that round he takes up is going to be up to Billy Q. Billy Q is defending 4 out of 6 takedowns. So you put that together, Billy Q is going to defend a good amount of those takedowns. If he can get taken down once, Billy Q can definitely win it. If he's getting taken down twice, he's going to have to get up quick. He can't be on the ground for 2-3 minutes of that round unless he gets up there and pretty much he's pretty much going to have to be the Steph Curry of MMA. You know what I mean? He's going to have to be the Warriors of MMA. He's going to have to put that output out, and we know that he has the ability to put that output out. But he's also going to have to land good shots. They can't just be pepper shots. Pepper shots isn't going to only get him the round. He's going to have to land some good stuff depending on how long he's on the ground. So this is definitely a grappler versus striker competition to me in my eyes. I personally think overall this is going to be a closer fight than many people are expecting. I think that Damon Jackson could very well get the victory, but I'm going to go with Billy Q. Next fight we got is Carlston Harris versus Jeremiah Wells. This is going to be an interesting fight because I think when you look at it, I would have to give the on the feet advantage. You know, if you're not calculating power at all, you give that to Carlston Harris. Carlston Harris is landing 4 significant strikes per minute compared to 3 to Jeremiah Wells, and he's just landing period 8-5 over Jeremiah Wells. And when you look at output per minute, he's throwing 13 shots compared to 10. Now let's calculate power to that. There's a huge power difference on the shots. Jeremiah Wells, Carlston Harris has the power to knock you out, and that's a fact. You know, and we've seen in Simmelsberger versus Jeremiah Wells fight, he got knocked down 2 or 3 times in that fight, got stunned a couple of more times. So Jeremiah Wells can definitely get stunned, he can get hit. The difference is Simmelsberger hits just like his nickname suggests. A semi. He's hitting you like a freaking semi. This dude is knocking down everybody in every fight multiple times. He's even knocking down guys who don't get knocked down ever, in like Alex Morono. Simmelsberger is a guy with extreme power. In his last week fight versus Euros Medic, he knocked him down once or twice. So the guy is packed with power. I don't think Carlston Harris has that same amount of power that Semi has. So when you put that together, now that gap in busyness that Carlston Harris brings, I think that will be somewhat, you know, brought to even when you look at the ability of, Jeremiah Wells' power. And that's if Jeremiah Wells doesn't get him out of there. And honestly, that is a option there. I can definitely see Jeremiah Wells knocking Carlston Harris out. But I could also see that going to decision as well, and him winning by decision. When I look at, the wrestling area, it's not as one-sided as you would suggest, as you would think it would be. I would say that, 49% of the fight in the last 3 fights for Carlston Harris was on the ground. Especially in his last fight, he definitely used a lot of grappling. So when you consider the fact that that's about 50% of the fight that he has on the ground, he goes to that now. That's something new for him, where he's adding that wrinkle to his game on a higher level. And he's only been controlled about 4% of the time in his last 3 fights. Compare that to Jeremiah Wells, though. Jeremiah Wells has been controlled 7% of the time, compared to him controlling 74% of the time. So, like I said, MMA math doesn't always work, but 49 to 7%, you put, that's not as big of a gap to 74 to 4%. You know what I'm saying? I think 74% of the fight, that pretty much tells you who that guy is. He's gonna grapple, and he's gonna be an aggressive grappler. I can see him leading the grappling exchange. That doesn't mean that Carlston Harris isn't gonna get him down once, because I can see that as well. I can see him trying to. Now I think the power advantage, the strength advantage is definitely in Jeremiah Wells' favor as well. I looked at Carlston Harris on the scale, and he didn't look bad. He looked good. He looked in shape, but he looked skinny. He looked really small compared to a guy that's more girthy like Jeremiah Wells. He's a bigger boy, a bigger man, I should say, overall. You look at the height difference. Obviously, different physiques, different. They carry their muscle differently, but I look at it. Jeremiah Wells is taking people down at a 47% clip in his last 3 fights, 7 to 15, compared to Carlston Harris, which is at 5 of 13, which is at a 38% clip. He's gotten. I just trust Jeremiah Wells' wrestling ability more. On the feet, I think that's going to be more even, because when you look at the power that Jeremiah Wells possesses, I think that can give Carlston Harris's some problems. So overall, guys, I'm gonna go with Jeremiah Wells to get the job done. Whether that's knockout or decision, either way, I think Jeremiah Wells has that dog in him to get that job done. And we've also seen that. We've seen, Jeremiah Wells get knocked down 2 or 3 times in a fight and still somehow win all those rounds pretty much. You know what I'm saying? Like he definitely has that dog in him as well. And if you got that dog in you, you got a better chance of being able to get those victories, because in these fights that are close, it's the guy who has not only more dog, but it's also the guy who has more skill. And so I think that Jeremiah Wells is going to get that done. Next, we got Raoni Barcelos versus Kyler Phillips. Guys, this is going to be a fun one. If this fight would have took place maybe a couple of years ago even, this might have been even more fun, because Raoni Barcelos he was amazing to watch. Like, I honestly at one point thought that this guy was a dark horse to get up there to possibly be a title challenger. Not so much anymore. He's gotten older. He's losing a little bit of a step here, and I think that that's a little bit against him in his chances of getting to the title contender. Kyler Phillips, he's been off for a year and a half, pretty much. He's a month off of a year and a half of being out the game. So I think, I do think that rust has a little bit to do with it. But he's a young spry, I think 28 years old. So I think he's still going to be good, enough to keep it going pretty much. Let's look at the significant strikes per minute. We got 6-5 in favor of Raoni Barcelos. We got 8-6 in just striking period in favor of Raoni Barcelos in the last 3 fights, guys. And attempts is 14-12 in favor of Raoni Barcelos. So when you would look at that, you would think, okay, he's just a little bit busier. Not too much to make a big difference here, guys, but he's a little bit busier. But then let's look at the speed. Raoni is quick. He was quicker, but now he's not the quicker guy in this fight for once. Kyler Phillips is quicker than this guy. Like, Kyler Phillips will drop a combo on you in a heartbeat, and he won't even think twice about it. And he might hit you with a spinning wheel kick to the noggin. I mean, this guy right here is just fantastic to watch him to fight. This is going to be a fun fight. This is going to be a fan-friendly fight. Most likely, this fight is going to most likely be on the feet for the most part. I do see it hitting the ground at some point. When you look at, Raoni Barcelos, he's controlling 21% of the fight on the ground compared to being controlled for 5% of the fight, whereas Kyler is controlling 17% of the fight on the ground and being controlled at a 12% clip on the ground. I do see it placing on the ground a little bit, but I don't think the ground is going to be a huge deciding factor. Maybe for a round, and a round could, it could do that. But let's also look at the fact that, Raoni is going at a rate of 3 of 13 on his takedown attempts, which is a 23% takedown attempt average. That's not necessarily great, but that does also mean that when he gets in trouble, he's definitely going to try to take Kyler Phillips down. But Kyler Phillips is defending at a 2 of 6 rate. So, at a 4 of 6 rate, he's only been taken down 2 times out of 6. So I think that, Kyler Phillips' movement is going to be an issue for, Raoni when it comes to the takedown. I also think his just ability to stop takedowns is going to be an issue. I could see Raoni getting him down maybe once in a fight, maybe especially once Kyler gets a little bit more tired. He has a very explosive fight game, so I could see him getting a little bit tired towards that 3rd round. For me, I think it's key for Kyler to get the first 2 rounds for sure, because I have seen him somewhat, curtail it. He kind of lose it a little bit at the end. He kind of loses that energy that he has. He still has the ability to keep going strong. He's not a quitter at any point of that, but I do see that, cardio wise, that could be a little bit of an issue towards the end versus a guy like Raoni, who's going to keep pushing even though he gets tired as well. Now, we also got to look at the fact that Kyler Phillips is taking down guys on a 10 of 22 rate, which is a 45% average. So, even though I would say Raoni has better controlling skills when he gets that person to the ground, I would say that I think Kyler Phillips is going to mix up that wrestling better and more than a Raoni Barcelos. And I think that will loom large for him, whereas he's going to be very quick. He's going to be quicker, and I think that's going to allow him to land, if not equal, to more strikes than by Barcelos, even though history would tell you something different. I also think that the fact that Raoni is losing a little bit of a step, I think that that's going to loom large for him, and the fact that he can mix it up. He's taking people down at a 45% range, even if he's not controlling them for a long time. In close rounds, those takedowns matter. They just matter, guys. and these judges are going to count that. And I think when you look at that, I think that Ione is, I got great respect for him in his game, but I think Kyler Phillips just got a little bit more in him that's gonna give him the edge. Now I don't know how much that year and 5 months off is going to loom for him, but like I said, I don't expect it to be a big problem considering that he's in his late 20s. He's not even in his 30s yet. He's not even my age yet. So I would say that, you know, he's still good enough or early enough in the game where that should not do any problems to him. So give me Kyler Phillips for the night, guys. All right, guys. Next, we got Ludovic Klein versus Ignacio Bahamondes. This fight is going to be a good one as well, guys. This is gonna have a good potential for maybe fight of the night as well, guys. I think this is a fight that can be up there with that. I think when we look at the striking advantage, obviously you're going to give that advantage to Ignacio. And when you go to the grappling advantage, obviously you're going to give that to Ludovic Klein. Let's get into the numbers of that, though. On a striking advantage, you got a 3 for Ludovic and 8 landing per minute in the last 3 fights. For Ignacio Bahamondes, we have a 5-to-9 ratio overall strikes in favor of Bahamondes, and we have just in pure busyness with their striking. Bahamondes is doubling the attempts at 8-to-16. So that's going to loom very large for Ignacio. That's going to be something that the judges are going to look at, and the fact that he's going to land big. And I do see Ludovic getting rocked. I can see him getting rocked, especially with something that he's just not expecting to see. But Ludovic Klein will jump. He will hit you with a jumping roundhouse to the noggin. That's something that I've seen him do. And versus I can't think of his name off the top of my head right now, but you guys know if you watched the fight. I think it was like 2 fights ago. But either way, this guy has explosive, you know, ability on the feet as well. So this can be high potential for, you know, high flying, nice looking, you know, striking for sure. Very pleasing to the eyes. But if Ludovic Klein falls in love with his striking, he will fail in this fight. The only way of victory for him is for him to mix that striking and grappling, in my opinion. He controls 37% of his fights in the last 3 fights on the ground compared to getting controlled to 12%. This man was taken down by Jai Herbert. Now, we all know, we just saw Ferguson versus Jai Herbert. And I personally thought that, you know, Jai Herbert was going to get the job done. I think it was very close. It could have went either way. But Jai Herbert is not known for his takedowns. He's known for his stand-up ability. And when we watch that fight, I think that's a good fight to look at when you're looking at this fight. I think that, you know, Jai Herbert is more known for being a boxer, kickboxer type style. And I think that's the same thing you're going to see here with Ignacio Bahamondes. That's more so his style. And I think, you know, they're around the same height. I think Jai Herbert's about 6'3" as well. So when you look at that, you got a 5'7" guy with a 72-inch reach versus a 6'3" guy with a 75-inch reach. He has no business standing up with Ignacio Bahamondes for the long term. If he mixes up that wrestling and possibly can get a takedown, that could be big for him. But let's look at his actual takedown, you know, offense. In his last 3 fights, he's 2 of 6. That's 33%. And Ignacio Bahamondes is defending at a rate of 16 of 17. He's only been taken down once of 17 attempts. He's defending at a 94% clip here, guys. And I don't see Ignacio doing much taking down at all. He hasn't gone for any takedowns officially in his last 3 fights. And even if he did, Ludovic Klein is defending at an 8 of 9 rate, at an 89% rate on the takedown defense. So I definitely think the offensive wrestling is going to come from Ludovic Klein. I can see him going for 2 or 3 maybe even 4 takedowns, and I just don't know if he's going to be able to get the takedowns that he needs to get that victory. And when you put that together, that makes this a stand-up fight. And if this is a stand-up fight, to me, this is pretty simple. I'm going Ignacio Bahamondes. Next up, guys, we got Dustin Jacoby versus Kennedy Nzechukwu. This fight is going to be a very pivotal fight for these guys, as I feel like they are in that range of they're trying to take it to that next level. They're trying to, Dustin Jacoby is faced more seasoned competition than Kennedy Nzechukwu, but I would say that they're in that similar type of position of trying to, establish themselves in the rankings, establish themselves as being those guys that are, here to stay. Dustin has been in the rankings. Kennedy is trying to, be get in the rankings and be a mainstay there. So this is one of those fights, guys, where there's going to be a lot on the line for both of these guys. We're going to see who wants it more. We're going to see who has more dog. I will say Dustin Jacoby has a lot of dog in him. That man was getting murked. I mean, murked by Azamat Murzakanov or something like that. Murkanov, or I'm murdering this guy's name. Murzakanov, that's how you say it. Azamat Murzakanov. That guy's name gave me a trouble. But I would say that he was getting murked versus that guy, and it was bad. It was bad. But that third round, though, that's when the dog was activated. And I understand that Azamat was tired, but that's when the dog was activated, and he brought it in, and he did what he had to do. No matter what the other opponent is doing, it's up to you to bring what you can bring, and he brought it. Kennedy, he got that dog in him too, though. I mean, I've seen him, that fight with Devin Clark. Devin Clark hit him with a nice two-piece. Well, not a two-piece, but a nice two, like a straight shot, straight to the melon, and he was stunned. He looked like he saw a ghost. That man was stuck. But he got back into the fight, and he ended up finishing Devin Clark. So that shows you the type of dog. He can go from being almost finished to finishing it. So now that we established that they both got that dog in them, let's look at the striking advantages. Significant in striking, when you look at it, it's 4-6 in favor of Dustin Jacoby in the last 3. When you look at striking period, it's 6-7 in favor of Dustin in the last 3 fights. And when you look at output, it's 10-13 in favor of Dustin Jacoby in the last 3 fights. So you can obviously tell here that Dustin Jacoby is throwing more strikes. Now, we cannot ignore that there's gonna be a height and reach difference here. Dustin Jacoby is at 6'3" with a 76-inch reach. The guy, he's only faced the guy with who was 6'4". That was the tallest guy he's faced in the UFC with an 80-inch reach. That's not Kennedy. So he's gonna be going in uncharted territory here, going against a guy like Kennedy, who is 6'5" with an 83-inch reach. The only 2 people in the UFC with a longer reach is John Jones and Sergey Pavlovich. That's it. And he's not even a heavyweight. Yes. The biggest guy that he's faced is a guy that's 6'6", okay? Even taller than him, with a 77-inch reach. So he's faced the guy with the reach of Dustin Jacoby and more. He's faced a guy with the height of Dustin Jacoby and more. So he won't be in uncharted territory. So that might loom large in his striking advantage, right? Because even though we see that Dustin Jacoby has the striking advantages and that Kennedy can get stunned, we've seen that Dustin Jacoby can get stunned too, many of times. He was knocked down like 3 times versus Azamat, and he's gonna have the reach advantage. Kennedy will. So I think that striking advantage is gonna be severely compromised. I think that it's going to be an even striking, you know, even more even in the striking advantages. I just think is if Kennedy wants to strike. You know what I'm saying? Because I personally think that Kennedy is going to use what he has a better advantage of, and that is the grappling. When we look at Kennedy, he controls 61% of the fight on the ground compared to being controlled 19% on the ground. This guy is about controlling you either on the ground or on the cage and dropping elbows on your face. And when I tell you he drops elbows on your noggin, he drops elbows on your melon. He does. That man is a problem, a straight problem. And I think that that's going to be a lot for Dustin Jacoby to deal with. Dustin Jacoby is at a rate of controlling 10% of the fight on the ground in the last three, and he's only been controlled 1% on the ground in the last three. So yes, he has great ability to not get controlled on the ground for a long period of time. But when you're going against a guy who's typically controlling at a 61% rate, over half the fight on the ground or on a cage, best believe that you're going to spend some time with your butt on the canvas or against the cage unless you knock this man out. That, to me, is Dustin Jacoby's best bet, is to knock Kennedy out or to legit pick and move. Hit and move. Pick apart little hits here, attack the legs. You know, pop that quick jab, couple quick straights, and then dip. Don't be in the pocket with this man. If you're in the pocket with this man, it's game over. Because Kennedy will grab you. He does really good with grabbing you in the clinch, a tie clinch, and just dropping nasty elbows and nasty knees to the body. He will tear apart your body as well, which is going to tear apart that cardio. And we saw, even though he had to activate the dog, that cardio was a little bit shaky in that fight versus Azamat. He showed that he had the cardio to last, but if you're getting knees into the body consistently, that cardio tank is lesser. It's lesser, guys, and that's just a fact. If Kennedy can do that, I personally think that Kennedy is going to win. Now, when we look at takedowns, he's taken down 5 of 9 of those takedowns in his last 3 fights. That's 56% of a 56% takedown rate. And I know that, you know, Dustin Jacoby's defending 4 or 5 of those, so he's at an 80% takedown rate. But this guy is stronger, okay? He's more determined to get those takedowns, especially if he happens to be in a striking disadvantage here. That I just personally think that that's not going to mean anything to Kennedy. Now, Dustin Jacoby will go for a takedown here as well. He's 1 of 9. That's 11% though. That's 11% to a guy that's defending 12 of 15. He's at an 80% rate as well in the defense. So while Dustin Jacoby may try to mix it up, which will be a smart, you know, thing. This is MMA. This isn't boxing. This isn't kickboxing. You need to mix it up. But in this fight, he needs to stay away from Kennedy at all costs. He needs to stay away from Kennedy because, like I said, even though Kennedy has that length advantage, he is a master of the inside game, kind of like a John Jones. John Jones has the ability to keep you at a range, but he is nasty inside that clinch. He will drop some nasty elbows on you and some nasty knees. So, guys, if you ain't catching my drift, I'm going Kennedy and Zechukwu. All right, guys, and we have arrived to the main event. I know it was supposed to be Umar Nurmagomedov fighting, but we got Rob Font fighting versus Corey Sandhagen. And I think, if anything, this will be more of a pleasing fight to watch for casuals because it's going to be more on the feet. It's going to be a fight that's probably taking place more on the feet than it would versus a Umar. But obviously, we would like to see him versus a Umar. But now, I think it probably Umar is gonna have to work his way back up to get that shot. That's just how I think about it. If Corey Sandhagen wins, now if he loses, hey, put the fight back together. It's the only fight that it only makes sense. You know what I'm saying? But if he wins, it's like, all right, well, we already kind of know that Corey is that guy who should be getting, another opportunity. Now let's look at the striking. Corey Sandhagen is a guy who pretty much has a striking advantage over pretty much any other human in the world. But when you look at significant strikes, that's not the case with a guy like Rob Font. Rob Font is landing 9 significant strikes compared to Corey's 6 in the last 3. Overall, he's landing 9 strikes compared to Corey's 7 in the last 3. And when you look at who's getting more busy, Rob Font is landing 18 compared to 16 to Corey. Now, we need to look at speed and movement. I personally think that Rob Font has a little bit quicker, more precise, very nice looking strikes. That jab is money. He's really good with the straight shots. They're really quick, really right on the money shots. And I think when you look at that, that looms large more for Rob Font. But it's about, can you get hit with those shots? And we saw both of them fight, Chito Vera. When Rob Font fought, he was piecing up Chito Vera. But that chin was getting rocked. I'm talking about rocked out there. Like, that chin was going through it, that fight. He got knocked down, I believe, 3 times. He got rocked about 4 or 5 times in that fight. Whereas when we saw, Corey Sandhagen face Chito Vera, that wasn't the case because Chito Vera can barely hit that man. He kept moving. His footwork is phenomenal. If not the best, one of the best footwork in the entire UFC. That man's footwork is phenomenal. He's able to be right in your face, but you can't hit him somehow. It's that Bang Muay Thai. He came from that Bang Muay Thai, so they practice great footwork over there. With the likes of a T.J. Dillashaw, Cody Garbrandt, the guys like that. So he's of that same mode. And I would just say that footwork is going to make him a bit hard to get hit. So when you look at those strikes, the strikes tell part of the story, but they don't tell the full story. Now, he is very quick, Font, so he might still land a good chunk of those shots. But I just personally think that if you can't hit the target, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? I would say when you look at the wrestling ability, Rob Font in his last 3 fights are controlled at 5% compared to him being controlled at a 21%. So obviously Rob Font is not very much so known for his ability to do the takedowns. He is taking people down at a 208 range, so that's about 25%. And he's only been taken down 0. He's not been taken down in his last 3 fights, but they've only attempted 1 takedown officially in his last 3 fights. That will be tested versus a guy like Corey Sandhagen, who is attempting 32 takedown attempts in the last 3 fights. That's over 10 takedowns per fight on average. And if I remember correctly, it's he had 6 takedowns versus Piotr Yan takedown attempts. I think 12 takedown attempts against Chito Vera and 14 on Song Yadong. So that guy is at least getting 6 takedowns in each fight, attempts in each fight. He's landing only 5% of them. But not all takedown attempts are for the purpose of taking a person down. It's about showing him like, hey, I got this in my bag, so you got to worry about that too. Corey Sandhagen is cerebral, guys. He is a cerebral assassin. That guy is able to outthink most competitors. he's overloading a lot of these guys' minds. And when you got a guy like Rob Font who's only been attempted to, a guy's only attempted to take him down one time in his last 3 fights versus a guy who's attempting 32, he's gonna get overloaded with that eventually, because Corey Sandhagen is gonna get some of those takedowns, and some of those takedowns are not gonna be for that purpose, because I've seen him set up flying knees off of just fake takedown attempts. So overall, when I look at it, I personally think that Corey Sandhagen's bag is just too deep. It's just too deep. And I think, honestly, outside of Aljamain Sterling and maybe Marab, maybe Sean O'Malley, maybe. Those are maybes. And Petr Yan, there's no other guys that really compare to that bag. And I wouldn't even say that their bag is that deep. I would say Petr Yan's bag is pretty much that, almost that deep. I would say that Aljamain Sterling's bag is pretty much that deep. But Sean O'Malley's not known for his wrestling ability. That doesn't mean he doesn't have it, but he's not known for it. And Marab is not known for his striking ability. That doesn't mean he doesn't have it. He has it, but he's not known for it. So overall, guys, I think Corey Sandhagen is he's just going to overload Rob Font. I think Rob Font is going to put up a heck of a fight, but he's also taking his fight last minute. He didn't look great on the scales. I ain't going to lie. He looked very sucked up on them scales. So I wonder how his cardio is going to be in the fight, especially with it being last minute, especially with him looking sucked up on the scales. And Corey Sandhagen looked good on the scales. I'm personally just going to go with Corey Sandhagen to get the job done. Guys, those are my picks for this UFC fight night. Enjoy the nights of fights and have a great one.